it's Chris, and today I'm gonna show you some blu-ray movies that I own that I enjoyed and appreciate and have, influenced me in my own perspective on film and filmmaking. I will be whispering ear to ear and just talking about the movies that I've selected. Alright, let's get started. Snowpiercer. It stars Chris Evans. Most of you will know him as Captain America in the same titled movie and also The Avengers. Although in this movie he plays quite a different character, quite a different role. He's still, the protagonist, but he's more of an anti-hero as opposed to a hero because he does have a dark side to him. It helps. He's more human in a sense. I guess he's more relatable. He does a really good job in this movie. It's directed by, excuse me if I pronounce this wrong, Bong Joon-ho. Sorry. He's directed movies such as The Host and Mother. I've seen Mother, I haven't seen Host, and I actually quite enjoyed Mother. And I'm just going to read you. Oh no. So I'll just tell you a bit about it. What I like about it, actually. I don't want to spoil too much of the movie. So, it's a very ambitious premise. Pretty much, it's the end of the world. Global warming has kind of caused a global disaster, and they sent it's an experiment, a failed experiment, and it's wiped all humanity out. I think it's got something to do with, since there was the issue of the world being hot, that they made it too cold. I wouldn't know for sure. I'd have to look into that, but anyway, the last known survivors of humanity exist on a train called the Snowpiercer, and the train has its own class, kind of hierarchy, social hierarchy. And so at the front of the train is the, I guess, leader, if you call him. I think his name is no, I don't know. But and at the back of the train is, I don't know if there were, I don't know how exactly it was organised, but at the back you've got the dirty, unclean, poor people, I guess you could call them. They're in the back of the train. Does look like a overpopulated, poor area, and they get fed really disgusting looking protein blocks, and pretty much the premise is that they want to rise up and stop and not get treated the way they've been getting treated. So Chris Evans' character decides to lead the people to the front of the train, and as a, I guess, film goer, if I heard that premise, I would have been a bit skeptical about it. Like, a whole movie about disappointed. Alright, so that's Snowpiercer. Let's move on. Spike Jonze love story. Now, I really enjoyed the narrative in this film, the screenplay. I thought it was very well written, and the premise I really liked. A lonely writer, he actually doesn't write books, I don't think he writes like love letters, but he has wrote a lot of them, so so pretty much what he does is he pretty much writes letters for couples, so a husband will get him to write to his wife for their anniversary, and his wife will do the same thing. And that's interesting because it's, saying something about what love might be in the modern age. It might be so distant. That's not really what that as well, but what I really liked is this whole concept of what love in the modern age actually means. Like, the premise of the film is that a lonely writer, Theodore Twombly, I think it was Twombly, yep, and he is lonely. He's just gone through, I think it was either a divorce or a breakup, I'm not too sure. Anyway, he upgrades his operating system, and it's actually like a full-on personality, voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and she does an awesome job as well. But it's pretty much about this lonely writer who falls in love with an operating system. Now, I've told this premise to a couple of my friends, and they've looked at me like, what? That's a bit odd. And I like it because it's not your typical story. Like, I got my parents to watch it, and they didn't enjoy it, I think, because it was a bit more of a strange story. Like, you see all these movies about men falling in love with women, but never this. Oh, you've seen some similar stuff like AI, like people falling in love with like artificial intelligence. But I thought this was a very interesting example because it was so relevant to today. And the direction itself, the cinematic style, I didn't hate it. I didn't like it either. Like, it was just adequate. And I really loved the story, but the screenplay was excellent. So that was next up. Children of Men. Now this, I loved everything about it. The direction, particularly, I really loved the cinematography in this. The director of photography was Emmanuel Lubezki. Now, Alfonso Cuarón, the director, and Emmanuel Lubezki collaborated, I think, on nearly every film Alfonso Cuarón has directed, but Emmanuel's also done some other well-known films with other directors. But you might know their collaborations. They've done Gravity. There's one of the earlier films, I can't remember the name of it, but one thing I really love about their kind of cinematic style is these long takes. Now in Gravity, obviously, you've probably noticed that they've got really, really long takes, but I think it's a bit different because a lot of that is actually, computer-generated environments with just the actors' faces in the astronaut suits. But I still appreciate that style, that vision, and that's the same here. There is one particular shot I absolutely adore, and actually two. One involves a car scene. Anyone who's seen this movie will definitely know what I'm talking about. It's the camera kind of rotates around. I won't say what happens, but it really creates an amazing atmosphere without, cutting. And I really love the idea of long takes. I know they are very, very challenging and require a lot of preparation for lighting setups and, technical aspects, as well as the actors need to prepare their lines and stuff like that. But, yeah. Another scene is another long take, but it's the emotion from that, the emotion from that shot that I absolutely love, because everything just stops and just focuses on this one moment. It's near the end. Everyone just stops and, it's amazing. I love it. And that also reflects the writing of the screenplay, which I thought was absolutely spectacular. The premise of this film is women are no longer fertile, which means that babies can't be made anymore, so everyone alive now is that's going to be it. When they all die, it's done. And then an event arises for the main character, played by Clive Owen, he's one of my favourite male actors. I know some of the films he's been in are a bit, over the top, like Shoot 'em Up, but I enjoyed him in Sin City and Children of Men. And there's actually one immigrant, because this actually makes another kind of interesting point on immigration and racism, maybe a bit, but more mainly immigration and what it means to kind of keep your country pure or something like that, because since the world's coming to an end, they want only English people just to live in London, sorry. Anyway, one of the immigrants actually becomes pregnant, and from there, I call him Clive because I can't remember his character's name, he then needs to protect her and get her to a ship called Tomorrow, which is kind of the last hope. You're not sure if it's real or not. You're not sure, I won't say if you don't or will. You might figure out whether Tomorrow is real or not. And it's a nice story of hope, but it's also very brutal, and realistic as well. And that's another reason why I like the cinematography in this, because it's shot in a very documentary-like style, and I think it really suits the film. So that's Children of Men. Let's move on. Now this one, Donnie Darko. This is a little bit of an exception, because although I enjoyed this film the first couple of times I watched it, the more I watch it, the more I start to realize that it's not as good as I thought it was. The reason I like this was for its choice of music. I kind of like the integration of those kind of little montages with, classic, I think 80s music, I think it was. I could be wrong. I think I heard Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears in there. And I think has a nice atmosphere to it as well, which I can appreciate. There's one particular scene that I absolutely love to death, and that is Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Donnie Darko. I won't go much into the story because I'm not very good at explaining this story in particular. I think it's hard to explain. And anyway, Jake Gyllenhaal's character has just said something rude to a teacher. Called her a swear word. I won't say it on the video, but and his parents get called in for a meeting, and the teacher's there as well, along with the principal. And he asks, "So tell me what happened." And then the teacher's like, "I'll tell you what happened. He told me to possibly do this into my this." And instead of it being like, serious, like, why would you do something like the father lets off a little chuckle? Oh, it was so hilarious. I love that guy so much. If you haven't seen the movie, I recommend watching it once or twice, but then don't watch it after that unless you expect to unless you still want to learn more about it. I kind of got the gist of it afterwards. Anyway, guys, that's Donnie Darko. What I'm going to do, I'll be back in a sec. You won't really know, so I'll just dissolve or fade into a new clip. My battery's about to run out in my camera, so I'll be right back. Alright guys, again, sorry about that interruption. So far we've gone through Snowpiercer, Children of Man, and Donnie Darko. Let's move on. Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass was my favourite movie of all time for quite a while. Kick-Ass is fantastically, if that's a word, fantastically, it was just so entertaining. It's about a teenager called Dave Lazuski. And he pretty much is tired of being mugged, and he thinks what would it be like if someone now in the real world would dress up as a superhero and fight crime, and his curiosity turns into action. So he decides to get his own wetsuit and construction boots and start fighting crime. And he gets beaten badly by a couple of thugs. He gets stabbed and ran over by a car, to be precise, so that's pretty brutal. Ooh, sorry about spoilers. It's not that big. And that's, I guess, not the big part of the movie that kind of sells it for most people. It's this little girl, hit girl, played by Chloe Grace Moretz. You probably know her from such films as the new remake of Carrie, Let Me In, another remake. What else is she? Hugo, directed by Martin Scorsese. That was an interesting film. And she just is spectacular. And I think that's partly because she says and does stuff that you wouldn't expect a 11-year-old girl to do. It feels very Tarantino-esque But it's just great entertainment. Great entertainment. Alright, moving on. This one is quite a new movie. Probably not as new as Snowpiercer, but Rush. This tells the story of the rivalry. I think it was in the 1970s, between Niki Lauda. I love the way his name sounds. And James Hunt. Niki Lauda is played by Daniel Brawl. I think it's very interesting surname. It's got like the U with the two dots. And Chris Hemsworth, who's a fellow Australian. And yeah, so it's not so much a movie just about racing. It's actually about the life of racing, I guess, and what it means to the racers to do what they do. It's brilliantly directed by Ron Howard. He's done the Da Vinci Code. Yeah, not much to say. It's pretty much about that rivalry. It's a very historic event. And yeah, anyone who enjoys any kind of Formula One, or I didn't even really watch much Formula One. I enjoyed the crap out of this movie. It's great entertainment. Now this next movie, I don't know I wouldn't probably call it entertainment. It's more of a critically successful movie. I studied it in high school, and I think cinematically it's just well done. Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, which probably most of you will know who did Gladiator. He also did the original Alien. Oh, so good. Sorry about that, guys. The card got full. So many interruptions. Anyway, Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, which I think everyone should know. He was Han Solo in Star Wars. Also Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones. And he is what was it? I can't remember, but he hunts down replicants. I think I don't know if he's called a Blade Runner. I think that's what they can name him, so it's the movie name. Anyway, he's been given an assignment to hunt down these rogue replicants that have escaped from a slave. No, not slave, but they're treated like slaves. The replicants do work all the time since they're robots or replicants, yeah. And it's a very artistic, I guess, vision, but very dystopian future. It says a lot about consumerism, and also globalization and immigration, because it's set in Los Angeles, and the first shot you see is this kind of black, industrialized, dark, yucky looking city full of buildings, and I understand why this movie was not critically acclaimed when it first came out. Two reasons. I think it's one of those movies that this gets better over time, and secondly, it was also because Ridley Scott was not able, his version of the film, his cut, did not get released when this movie came out. If you were to watch this movie, I recommend the final cut that he even says before on this Blu-ray. He even says before the movie, "This is the vision of Blade Runner I wanted everyone to see. This is his Blade Runner in its fullest form, and it is wonderful. It is. I can't say too much, but if you're a general viewer of movies, you probably won't like this. It'll probably be too slow, not enough happening, not enough to keep study. This is a very good movie to study. And in actual fact, Ridley Scott is a very good director to study. These movies are very influential on the movie, modern movie industry. Alright, especially sci-fi. Alright, moving on. Now this movie is currently, I think, one of my, it might be, it sounds funny when I say I don't even know my favourite movie. Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights. Paul Thomas Anderson directed this and wrote this. He is my favourite director of all time. He has done movies such as, actually I'll just list them all. His first feature film was Sydney or Hard 8. There was a bit of issues with the cut of this. I think the studio who helped him fund it or something changed some stuff, and yeah, not too sure about that. But he preferred the name Sydney, but I think he had to get the name changed to Hard 8 if he wanted to get the version he wanted to get released. Because in filmmaking, often in large budget, like in pictures, movies, if the director isn't very well known, so you're not like Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese, you tend to not get the final say in the final cut, which is unfortunate. And sometimes they can really screw you over because you film it, you're happy with it, but then suddenly the producers want something completely different or don't want something that you thought was very acceptable to be behind the film. So Hard 8 or Sydney was his first film, whatever you want to call it. I prefer Sydney because that's what he prefers. His next film was Boogie Nights. Next film after that was Punch Drunk. Oh, sorry, no, not Punch Drunk. My bad. It was Magnolia. And Magnolia was a very interesting film. It had an excellent cast: Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, Philip Baker Hall, and it pretty much follows several people in how their lives interconnect and like emotionally, and they're all kind of going through a rough time and they overcome that. And then something very climatic happens at the end, which I never would have expected. It says a lot about some religious things. After that was Punch Drunk Love, starring Adam Sandler. Now, this movie is very strange. By that I mean it's not strange as in like disturbing or anything. It's strange as in like, if you can imagine someone was very happy, if you know what I mean, when they made this film. I don't know what he was on. He might not have been on anything, but it's a very interesting movie. And it's up there as my favourite movie as well. I think it's Adam Sandler's best performance. And it's a love story pretty much, but it's made in such a way that's very interesting and compelling. After Punch Drunk Love was There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood has been considered by most people as his best film, and also I think one very well-known institute, I think American Film Institute, I could be wrong on this, don't quote me on this, but I think they named it and put it in the top 10 or most top 20 of the most influential American films of all time. Oh, sorry, of the last decade. That has Stanley Kubrick stars Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix, and it is about a World War II survivor. He was a soldier, and he's come back and he's a bit funny in the head, and he meets up with this cult leader, and they decide to develop a friendly relationship, not romantically, but a friendly relationship with each other, and things start to happen in the film, and he's like the development of his cult, and also Joaquin Phoenix's character. He's finding, like, a place in all, trying to find acceptance, trying to get over the past. And most recently, Inherent Vice. Now, in Australia, we get movies in the cinemas a lot later than America, so that's not even out in the cinemas as of today. And I'm really excited to see it. I've heard it's quite good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights stars Mark Wahlberg, Burt Reynolds, Don Cheadle, Julianne Moore, Heather Graham, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Philip Baker Hall. I think there's quite a few more. William H. Macy. He is one of my favourite actors. Can't believe I almost forgot him. Anyway, it stars all those guys, and it's a film about the adult film industry, in the 70s. That was the golden age of that industry. And it's not, about sex and all that. It's more about the connections that people in the industry have with each other. I enjoy it because it's this idea of in that type of industry, obviously it's a very looked down upon type of role, I think, and it's nice how, like, all these people, when they get a chance, they can latch onto each other and they become a family, and it's very touching. I like it. And it's got Paul Thomas Anderson's cinematic style. I talked about long takes earlier. Another interruption, guys. The phone rang. These long takes in this are awesome. And just everything. I love this movie so much. Check it out, guys. Alright. I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you enjoyed my ear-to-ear whispering and rambling about these movies. One thing I was curious about was whether you found the whispering more relaxing, or when I speak like this.